Hello there, Game of Thrones fans, and welcome to another episode of our Season 7 reviews. So this week we are on episode 5, sorry, that's episode 6 then, wishing away the episode's a bit too fast there. I do apologise for a couple of things actually. First of all, this video is so late after the broadcast of the episode itself, and that's because I was away with my youth holiday. I was away on a youth holiday for the last week, so I haven't actually been able to record it because I've only just watched the episode on Friday, so I've had to obviously record it today. It's just now Sunday, so I do apologise for that. And actually the next episode 6, is actually airing tonight in America and tomorrow in Britain. So yeah, that's one thing to apologise about. And the second thing is just that I'm starting to lose my voice a bit because of all the sort of talking and singing and stuff that I've been doing over the last few days at the Christian youth camp. Or youth holiday, sorry. So if I do clear my throat a bit, I do apologise now. So yeah, just to let you know, make sure you're aware of that before we start. Anyway, let's issue a spoiler alert. So that's just to say that there will be spoilers from last night's episode, or from this week's episode rather, episode 5. And that if you haven't watched this episode, don't watch this review. So yeah, let's get started with this review. So yeah, so the episode we're reviewing this week is Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5, called Eastwatch. Now, I assume the title is because we had the introduction of Eastwatch by the Sea this week. It's the first time we've probably seen it, sort of the castle itself. We saw it obviously when Bran was flying over it in his as the Ravens, and also it had its own title sequence animation, which we're going to try and get hold of for the section on Eastwatch by the Sea, which we'll talk about later on. So yeah, it had its own little animation on the title sequence, which I was quite impressed with, that they got it so quickly. And also the White Walkers are heading towards the keep of Eastwatch by the Sea, which I suppose is why it's called Eastwatch, because it's now focusing on the White Walkers as opposed to the bigger war between the different kings and queens in Westeros. It's now focusing towards the big war between the White Walkers and the living, essentially. So my 5 words are under this week. I have only 2 words this week actually, and they are interesting developments. And as I say every week, you'll see why I think they're interesting developments as we go through the review. Yeah, so let's just keep that in the back of our minds as we go through it. So we start this review by looking at well, the events on the Rose Road, I suppose, which is sort of the road leading up to King's Landing, between Highgarden and King's Landing, which hence why the Rose Road, I suppose. Jaime and Bronn emerged from the Blackwater Rush, and obviously so they're both alive, which is good because we weren't sure at the end of last week's episode whether they were alive or not. As it turns out they are, which is amazing because they're 2 fantastic characters, and I would hate to lose them at this point in the game really. And both acknowledged that if the dragons are unleashed, if all 3 of the dragons are unleashed, then Daenerys will win the war, which I suppose is what we already knew from the beginning, but it's now starting to dawn on the individual characters in Westeros that if she releases these dragons on King's Landing is just going to be defeated, and Cersei and the Lannisters will just be no more. So I think it's a really interesting development that they are acknowledging now finally that the dragons are real, that they are dangerous, they are deadly, and that if they are released and unleashed from their chains and that Daenerys commands them to kill everyone, they will. It's quite an interesting development that the characters are now starting to realise this. And also Daenerys demanded fealty, from Lannister and Tarly troops. So that's Jaime's troops and Randall Tarly's troops. And she burned Randall Tarly and his son Dickon alive, basically because they wouldn't bend the knee. And that's what she seems to want to do this season, is get people to bend the knee, which I suppose is what a ruler does, an invader does, but I don't know if it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from Daenerys or not. I don't really know whether I agreed with it or if I disagreed with it. I felt a bit indifferent because I don't really feel anything towards those characters, and they haven't really brought anything to Game of Thrones, to Randall Tarly and Dickon Tarly. But I don't know. I think it was a little bit of an impulse action. And actually, we're starting to see Daenerys almost creep into her father's legacy a bit, and actually, because obviously he was the Mad King, King Aerys, the second I think he is actually. And he burnt people alive, and so is she now. So it's a little bit creeping into the history before the show and bringing it now to make it part of the show, I suppose. The events in King's Landing this week have been quite interesting. We had Jaime telling Cersei that Olenna poisoned Joffrey, which was an extremely tense scene, I thought. And actually, Jaime and Cersei's sort of chemistry this week has little bits of tension where we can just tell that Jaime isn't quite supportive of her as much as he was even at the beginning of this season. There was still that support there, even though he was a little bit wary of her. But I think now it's becoming really obvious to me, especially, I don't know to anyone else, that Jaime is actually really unsure about Cersei's actions and really unsure about what she's going to do next. Now, Tyrion and Jaime also had a conversation which was quite an interesting development, because obviously we showed how much the family dynamic has shifted. It's really shifted. So we had, first of all, that, you know, Jaime was always seen as a superior character, or the superior sibling, I think. He was always seen as the knight, he was seen as the saviour of Westeros, he was seen as all of these sort of things. And now the power dynamic has shifted, and Tyrion holds the power over Jaime, and Jaime actually feels, I think, for the first time in his life, how Tyrion has felt for the entirety of his life. And actually Cersei is holding the most power in the siblings now. Actually, she is the one that's really holding the power. She's the queen of Westeros. She just has everything that, you know, she needs, really. And Jaime conveyed Tyrion's message to Cersei, which was quite an interesting scene, because Cersei then revealed to Jaime that she is pregnant again, with Jaime's child, obviously. Now I want to know, there's a question this has arisen from this actually that I've decided that needs to be answered, and I want to be answered. Will she actually give birth on the show? Will it be the first time we actually see Cersei giving birth? Or we actually, you know, it'd be like the second baby I think that's ever been born in this program, because we had little baby Sam, and then it would be Cersei giving birth to this child. So will she give birth, or will she be killed before she has the baby? And if so, who will kill her and why? So let's hope that we get the answer to those questions before the end of the series, in terms of the end of season 8, I mean. And then also Davos located Gendry for the first time ever in King's Landing. It seems for the first time in ages, which was when he disappeared back in the end of season 3, sorry. And there was also, it made me laugh, there was a joke about rowing, which made me, well, I was in hysterics about that, really. It was so funny. Davos just basically said, I thought you might still be rowing, to Gendry. And that was it, really. I was on the floor. It was so funny. Anyway, enough about the rowing joke. Gendry escaped King's Landing with Davos and Tyrion after showing his skills with a warhammer, which, if you don't know the history of Westeros, Robert Baratheon, who was the king right back in the beginning of Game of Thrones, his weapon of choice was a warhammer. He was like the most powerful warrior. He was one of the most powerful warriors in Westeros at the time. He defeated Rhaegar Targaryen with a warhammer, and yeah, he basically killed him with the warhammer. So that's basically showing, and also Gendry is Robert Baratheon's bastard son, so it's basically coming back around again to show how much the family is just, you know, the Baratheons are a really strong family, and actually they're still going in Gendry, so it's really good to see that progression. On Dragonstone then, when Daenerys arrived back from the Rose Road, we had Jon petting Drogon, which was a bit of an interesting scene actually, to show that Drogon actually allowed Jon to pet him and sort of stroke his face and things, and actually that's sort of the first clue we've got that Jon is actually a true Targaryen, and I think Daenerys is starting to realise that he could be a Targaryen rather than the northern bastard that everybody thinks he is. So Jorah Mormont also arrived at Dragonstone this week, which was an interesting one, because he obviously he's only just been released from Old Town. I think it was episode 3, was he released from Old Town? Something like that, episode 3 or 4. And Daenerys invited him back into her service, which was a really lovely and touching scene, because it shows that she's now actually almost forgiven him for what he did, for betraying her and for, you know, everything else that he did to her. And yeah, and Varys and Tyrion also had a conversation together discussing the brutality of Daenerys, and basically Varys said that he wants Tyrion to speak to her about this brutality, about these burning people alive, sorry. And I think that's going to be really interesting. It's a bit of an odd conversation to have with somebody. You can't really just go up to someone and say, hey, stop burning people, because they're not going to listen to you. But, you know, I think at this point in time, Tyrion is now the person who holds the power over Daenerys. He's the only one that really can advise her against doing this. And I don't think she'll listen to him, but obviously she might take what he says into consideration and then sort of dismiss it. And finally then on Dragonstone, Jon decided to lead a mission north of the wall to capture a White and bring it to King's Landing in order to convince Cersei that actually the threat is real and that she needs to be doing something about it. So that's going to be an interesting development next week when we see what happens as a result of that mission. up in the north then at Winterfell, we have Bran walking into Ravens and travelling beyond the wall basically. And so it's quite an impressive sequence actually, I thought, with the Ravens. The CGI on the Ravens is pretty real actually, and I was quite impressed with it. And they obviously were sent to locate the army of the dead, which we saw through Bran's eyes. And actually the Night King did look up and see the Ravens, and I think the Night King actually is starting to scare me more than he should. I mean, he's a fictional character, but the Night King is actually creepy. And Bran basically ordered ravens to be sent throughout the Seven Kingdoms to warn people of the army that was approaching. However, a lot of people don't really believe in the army of the dead, but Bran has now seen them, Jon has now seen them, Sam has seen them, Gilly has seen them. A lot of people are starting to see the Walking Dead, or the White Walkers. However, a lot of people still don't believe the people who have seen it. And Arya basically accused Sansa of wanting to take the power from Jon in Winterfell and rule the North by herself. That was a very intense scene actually, and I think that we're starting to see the sibling rivalry again between Arya and Sansa that we saw back in season 1 when they never really got along then, and now they're still not getting along even though they're older and they've been separated for a long time, they've been reunited. There's still something between them that they don't agree with each other. And Arya also found a letter from Sansa in Littlefinger's room. I know he did see her, he was lurking in the shadows, so he knows that Arya has found the letter. And basically it was a letter that was sent to Winterfell, pleading with the Starks to bend the knee to the Lannisters. Obviously she was forced by Cersei to send that letter, and it was an interesting development actually in that this letter from season 1 found its way back into the storyline again, and actually that's what we're seeing a lot. I think they're trying to bring it full circle almost, so that things from season 1 are turning up in season 7. It's really interesting to see these storylines return back to almost to the centre point from which they came from, and I really like that. I really like seeing the developments. And then we're just going to look down south before we look at the last thing on the map, at Old Town. And actually we should be looking at Eastwatch here, but I'm just going to move it around a little bit because Eastwatch actually ended the episode, so what I'm doing is just switching them around, even though it should be Eastwatch because that appeared first in the title sequence. So in Old Town we have Ebros, Archmaester Ebros, played by Jim Broadbent. Fantastic actor, fantastic character, discussing the warning from Bran with other Archmaesters in the Citadel. So Sam basically gives credence to Bran's warning. He repeated the fact that he's seen them, he repeated the fact that he'd also fought one and defeated it, I think, that's what he said. And basically Archmaester Ebros seems swayed by Sam's sort of his credence, but however he still wants more clarification from the Maester up in Winterfell, so he's basically sent off word to that. But Sam has basically decided that he's not very helpful to anyone at Old Town. He's not actually helping anyone, so he's basically decided to leave Old Town and head north once again to go and find Jon and help him fight the White Walkers, which I think is a really admirable thing for Sam to do. And we've really now seen that this character, who at the beginning of like season 1, episode 3, I think it was, he was a complete wimp. He didn't really have any purpose in life, and now he's got this honourability, and he's just basically turned his life around so that he is now going to go up north and fight the army of the dead, essentially. And he's basically left Old Town, after stealing numerous texts from the library, which I assume he's going to use to help him defeat the army of the dead once and for all. So finally then, at Eastwatch by the Sea, we had Jon, Davos, Gendry and Jorah arrive and meet with Tormund. Tormund Giantsbane, obviously, who's been given Eastwatch by the Sea by Jon Snow to look after it and basically reinforce the Night's Watch. So the Wildlings are now part of the Night's Watch. It's a fantastic development in something we never thought would happen, I don't think, back in like season 3 season 2 when the Wildlings were first introduced. Jon reveals his intentions to go beyond the wall, and Tormund took him to the ice cells where we have the Brotherhood without banners and the Hound being kept. Of all the strange developments, this is probably one of the weirdest ones. I think having these two groups meet and join together because they've acknowledged the common enemy now is going to be an interesting one to see where that takes them, because I don't know if Jon will work well with Beric Dondarrion and Forest of Myr and all of that lot. I don't know what will happen with them two. I don't know whether it's going to basically clash or if they're going to work well together. But we'll have to see, I suppose, next episode, because everybody except Davos went beyond the wall to start off on the mission to go and get a White Walker to bring back down to show Cersei and prove that they are real. So yeah, that's what we're going to look forward to next week. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic development next week as well. But this week has just been quite a good setup to what should be essentially a good battle next week between the White Walkers and this little small group of people. So yeah, now we come to my overall conclusion of the episode. Now, it wasn't quite as exciting as episode 4, I didn't feel, but obviously it still contained all the right ingredients to make this a great episode of Game of Thrones. Now, next week's one is the one I'm really excited for, episode 6, because obviously in previous seasons, our episode 9 has been the best episode of the season, basically building up to the massive climax before episode 10 brings it down and deals with the fallout and the consequences of episode 9. So, presumably then, episode 6 of this season, because there's only 7 episodes, episode 6 will be our episode 9, so that hopefully we'll have a massive battle and a massive climax of the episode, and then episode 7 will be sort of the come down from that episode, and then it will deal with the consequences of the events of episode 6. I'm assuming it might not happen that way, but let's hope it does. Well, to be fair, we've had quite a few battles this season already, so I suppose a lot of it's been episode 90, but you know, I suppose we'll have to see what happens next week. I'm looking forward to this episode that's airing tomorrow night in the UK. But because of that, my overall rating is an 8.5 out of 10. It wasn't quite as good as last week's rating, which was a 9 out of 10, but that's because we didn't have a massive battle this week, which would probably boost it up to a 9 out of 10. But it was still a fantastic episode that I really enjoyed watching. I was actually felt quite tense throughout, and actually I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this story next. So yeah, that's it for my review this week, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I really want to thank you just for watching the review. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and remember to subscribe to my channel. It's just down below this video. You can find on my channel page the reviews for the rest of the season of Game of Thrones season 7, my reviews for season 6 of Game of Thrones are on my channel, my review for season 2 of Gotham, all of that. Anything you could possibly want, probably you'll find something of it on my channel. Yeah, I just really hope you've enjoyed watching this, and thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you all probably either tomorrow afternoon or, well, no, probably Tuesday afternoon for my Game of Thrones season 7 episode 6 review. I will see you all then. Goodbye.